Hello, my name is John Lord and I'd like to give you a demonstration on Litchi on setting up waypoints in a matrix that you can use to do surveys with. I've been using Litchi for some time, and what I'm going to show you is some of the things I do and the tricks to make setting this up easy. What I like about Litchi is the fact that it gives me total control over the waypoints, the height, the speed, and the camera actions. And I can store all that, and I can recall it, and I can edit it later on. So that's with the introduction. So I'm now going to open up Litchi. Now I'm using an Apple Mac. You might ask, why am I not using Safari? Well, what I found is that with Safari, if you try and export from Litchi to a CSV, it limits for some reason, or it doesn't work if you have too many waypoints. And it seems a bit variable. Sometimes it's 50, sometimes it's 60. It doesn't allow you to export all 99 waypoints that you can actually use or have with Litchi. But Google does not have a problem. Google Chrome doesn't have a problem. So that's why I'm using Google Chrome. So I'm going to do the flight planning on Litchi Hub, on the Mission Hub. So I'm going to open that up, and I'm already signed in, and it's come to the area where I live, which is just outside Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk in England. The area that I'm going to do the demonstration on is one that's not too far away from where I live, and it's of a field that is close to a nature reserve, and this field was actually recently acquired by the nature reserve, and they asked me to fly over it and produce a composite image of the reserve itself, of the field itself, so that they can plan what work they want to do on there. So there is the field. It's actually 77 acres. Can't tell you what that is in hectares, but it's 77 acres. So before I go any further, the first thing I'm going to do is to come down to settings at the bottom left here, and I'm going to check that everything is set as the way I want. So the aircraft I'm going to be using is an Inspire 2. I'm going to use Imperial units because I'm in England, and that's what we use. The heading mode is going to be custom. In fact, it's going to be 0 degrees. Finish action, I'm not bothered about that. The path mode, very importantly, needs to be set to straight lines. If you have curved turns set up in Litchi, then the camera actions do not work. So that is a gotcha. I fell foul of that in the past. I planned a mission, went out to run it, and found it didn't take any pictures. And when I looked, I'd had curved turns in. There is a warning in Litchi, but it's not very prominent. The cruising speed I'm going to be using is 15 miles an hour. I did try going to a faster speed, 25 miles an hour, in the misguided belief that it would get the mission over quicker. But in fact, what happens when you've got lots of waypoints, the aircraft accelerates up from a waypoint to 25 miles an hour, decelerates, and quite often it will overshoot the next waypoint and then has to come back. So it can take quite a while before the photograph is taken. 15 miles an hour seems to be a good compromise. The default curve size says 51%, but that's immaterial because we are using straight lines. The gimbal pitch mode is set to interplate, which is what I want, and so the settings now are all as I want them. So I can now close that. I'm going to be flying from the bottom right-hand side of this field, and my takeoff point is just here. So I normally put a waypoint not too far away, so I'm going to click that and add the waypoint. The height I want it at that waypoint is 125 feet, and I'm going to tell it to set the gimbal pitch to -90 degrees so it's looking straight down, and I want it to take a picture. Now, in fact, what I found with Litchi is it won't actually take a picture with the camera looking down at -90 degrees. It appears to take the photograph first and then it adjusts the gimbal pitch. I have reported that to Litchi, but they have not fixed it. So that's something to be aware of, and it's a reason why I have effectively a waypoint in before the real waypoints I have on the mission. So I'm then going to fly up to the top right of this field and put another waypoint in. So at this point I want the aircraft to be at 350 feet, and I'm going to, the heading is fine. The gimbal pitch is going to be -90 degrees. Now logically, in theory, if you disable the gimbal pitch, then it will remain at whatever it was previously set to, but belt and braces, in my case, I like to set it to -90 degrees. And I want it to take a picture, so I'm going to click on there and take a picture. So that's my first real waypoint. Move it over just a tad. So that's my first real waypoint that of the images that I'm going to ultimately use. Now I have determined that if I'm flying at 350 feet with the field of view that you get with the X4S camera, which is what I'm using on the Inspire 2, I actually, if I want a 50% overlap on the images, so the adjacent images will overlap by 50%, I want 262.5 feet between the images. Well, we won't worry too much about the 0.5 feet. And that's in the that's in the horizontal plane, and I want 175 feet in the vertical plane. So I'm now going to zoom in a bit so it makes it easier for us to set. So I'm going to click here and move that back to 262 feet, and I'm going to create another one, 262 feet. You may ask, why aren't you putting the camera actions in? Well, I'm going to show you a quick way of doing that a bit later on. So I'm going to add these waypoints in, and I want a total of 9 across. So back to 262 feet. Another one way up that time, so 262 feet. That's near enough. And another one at 262 feet. Yes, don't tell me it's not in line, don't worry about that. That's good reason for that, something I'm going to demonstrate in a second. So there we go, and I want another one across here, so 262 feet. So if I zoom out so we can see the line, there are our waypoints, and I've got, if I count from, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, but of course you're going to say, hey, they're not in a straight line, that's no good. Well, here is a trick. I'm going to remove all these waypoints in the middle here. So I'm going to click on waypoint 3 as it is currently, and I'm going to remove those ones. So I'm just left with the 2 end waypoints. Now, here's the trick. Go to the waypoint, in this case 2, and click Insert. Litchi will then add a waypoint midway between, in this case, what was waypoint 2 and waypoint 3, which has now become waypoint 4. And if I click it again, it adds another waypoint midway between. And if I click it again, we have another waypoint, and we can see those are 262 feet. So I'm now going to go back and add those other ones in. This is something you can't do on the app on the iPad. Well, you can, but it's not as quick as doing it on the hub. So there we go. So we add those in. Now I'm going to zoom in because I want to come down 175 feet to add in my next row. There we go, 175 feet. Go across to the other side and effectively put the next one in immediately below, in this case, waypoint 2. 175 feet, that's not too far out. You can see what I did there. I add a waypoint in. It's going to give me the distance, so it gives me a measure. Pull it down, 175 feet. There we go. Go over to the other side and repeat the exercise. And so we have waypoint there at 175 feet, and now the last row for what I want to do. So I come over here and there we go. So I'm just going to do, for the purposes of demonstration, just going to do 4 rows and zoom out a bit, and I'm then going to bring the aircraft back to effectively where I started from. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is use the same trick again. I'm going to go on the second row and click insert, 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 and you can see what's happening. It's adding these in, and they're all, well, these ones are 263 feet, but what's 1 foot between friends? And there we go. And insert, insert, insert. To insert, I'm just left clicking the mouse. And here we go again, insert, insert. If you inadvertently click twice and you put one where you don't want it, just click on delete up here and it will take it back out again. So add that last one in there. Do the next row. Insert, 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 and the last ones. So there I have my matrix. In fact, what I want to do is to also cover this bit up here. So with Litchi, again, it's quite easy to do that. What I'm going to do is I am going to go to this waypoint here, click insert. It's going to put one midway, but I can then drag that up. So I'll drag it up 175 feet. Thereabouts. Click insert again and add another one. 175 feet. And I'm going to do the same again. So I want it 262 feet apart and roughly in line to give me the 175 feet separation. And again, and I'll do another one, another row up the top here, so 175 feet. Okay, that's right. That's gave me a small problem here. You can see it put one right in the middle there. So what I'm actually going to do is just drag that up a bit, click insert, and now I'm going to take that one back down again, just so I can get onto that one that it put in an inconvenient place. So there we go, up there for that one, and one more insert. Okay, so the Inspire is going to come along here, it's going to go up there and effectively do that and take the pictures. Now there are a few waypoints here that I need to just adjust, in fact, because these are flying over properties, and people quite often don't like drones flying over their properties. So I'm going to delete it, click on the ones I want to delete and delete that one and delete that one. And on this one here I'm going to move just slightly again, because if you're flying over someone's property, they can get a little bit agitated. Okay, so there we have the sort of top part of the matrix as I want it. So if we now have a quick check, waypoint 1 is 125 feet. Now, something I like to do is I like to have another waypoint close to the first waypoint that I'm really interested in. So I'm going to click Insert, and I'm going to put a waypoint up there, and I want that to be at 350 feet. So it's going to be at the height of the other ones. The gimbal is going to be minus 90 degrees. But I'm not going to take a picture. I'm going to just have the camera, just have the aircraft just stay there for 10 seconds. The reason for this is it gives me the opportunity then to focus the aircraft, focus the camera. I could, of course, press pause and do it, but if the aircraft is approaching at 15 miles an hour, if you've got a waypoint, it will actually stop at that waypoint for 10 seconds. I could, of course, then press pause, but it then gives me the opportunity to focus the camera. I don't like using the AFC function because sometimes it doesn't always focus. What I tend to do is I leave it on auto focus, or I use manual focus, and once it's set, then I leave it. Okay, so that was now waypoint 2. Waypoint 3 is the first one of the ones where it's going to take a picture, and it's minus 90 degrees and take a photo. Now, of course, I could go to the second one and do this, minus 90 degrees, and take a picture. But of course, I'd have to step through all these other ones to do that, and that is a little bit laborious, and I don't like making work for myself. So I'm going to demonstrate one of the powers of Litchi, and that is I can export this as we see it now, export as a CSV file. So I click on that. It's now exported it, and it's put it in my downloads file within the computer. So if I click that, it's opened up Excel spreadsheet, and there is my mission. So we can see the first row is a latitude, longitude, then next comes altitude. For some reason it always adds a bit on the altitude, like 0.04257 feet, but won't worry about that. You could, if you want, set that exactly to 350 feet. The heading is 0 degrees, which is fine. Curve size, not interested in. Rotation direction, not interested. The gimbal mode is 2, which is the interpolate. And here we have the gimbal pitch, which is minus 90 degrees. Now, the first waypoint is minus 90 degrees, take a picture. The second waypoint is minus 90 degrees. It's stay 4, so 0 is stay 4, and it's 10,000 milliseconds, which is 10 seconds. The third waypoint is minus 90 degrees and take a picture, as is the fourth one. But the other ones below this, the camera has not been set or Litchi has not been told to take a picture. So quick way of updating that is select those three parameters, copy and run down and then paste. So there I have pasted all the parameters in. So now I go to save that. It's warning me that it's a CSV file, so I say yes. And now I'm going to exit Excel, and again I'm going to get a warning, don't bother to save it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do in Litchi, I'm going to go and import that. So import, choose my file, import to, so open it so it's loaded here, so there's the file, import to a new mission. And so there is now my mission, and if we now check 120, so the first one is 125 feet, minus 90 degrees, and taking a photo. The second one is 350 feet. It's going to stay for 10 seconds with the gimbal again at minus 90 degrees. And then this is the first of the images that I really want, which is height 350 feet, minus 90 degrees gimbal pitch, and it's going to take a photograph. And now if I can step through them very quickly and check that they are all correctly set. So they are all correctly set. One other small change I'm going to do before we save this is I'm going to change that last waypoint to 125 feet. That just brings the aircraft down gradually from 350 feet to 125. Just be mindful if you do that, make sure you haven't got any trees close by because you want to make sure that you're going to clear anything on this as it's descending. You want to make sure it clears. Okay, so there is my matrix that I want. Now, of course, what I would normally do is I want to cover the whole field. So in part 2, I'll actually show you what I do in getting everything together. So the important thing now is to save it. So save it, and we give it a name. Litchi Waypoint demo. I can't remember what I've got before, so I'm going to call it 8. And so that's saved. So that's my sort of tutorial on what I do to set this up. Some people will say, yes, there are programs out there like Drone Deploy will do it all for you. But what I like about this is I have total control over it. And if something doesn't go right, I can adjust something, I can adjust the parameter so I can fly it again and so on. So thank you very much for listening. And part 2 will be covering how you actually effectively take the whole area here and then split that down into manageable flights. So once again, thank you for listening. See you in part 2.